What's up, guys? I hope my phone, my earpieces. Just for a second. I'm gonna make sure this thing is going. Come on, you guys up? You guys on with this thing right now? Let's get Steve Trevino sitting here fiddling with my phone. Come on, baby. I'm gonna bring you on camera. I see him. There he is.
Hey, buddy.
What's going on, brother?
Well, I wanted to wear my tank top to show you my massive arms, just to give you some goals, buddy.
You are goals. Your life goals, man. I
How
need
you
that
doing,
ink.
my friend?
I'm good, man. I'm sitting here. It's not raining, it's not monsooning right now, and I got a wet bunch of grass and stuff. I got a fence in my backyard that's leaning over into my neighbors, so I got to fix this thing.
Well, it's one of those things where you need to do a ham. You know, ham?
No, what's that?
Hire a Mexican. You don't know ham? Come on, dude.
Is that wait? Can I call you? Is that what this phone call is about? I didn't even
Oh, no, no,
realize
no.
it.
I'm not that kind of Mexican, dude. You
Oh.
gotta there's Mexican American and then there's hire a Mexican. We're very different. We're very, very different.
That's awesome, man. Dude, thanks for coming on. I wanted to appreciate this, man. A lot of you guys know him. Chris, he's watching already. He already commented when I was alerting you guys that Steve was going to be on. That he was like, "Man, that guy's hilarious." So, but for some of you guys who don't know, Steve is comedian, producer, writer. Dude's been on Netflix, Showtime, on Amazon right now. The guy's destroying the world right now. Hey, my wife just popped on. What's up, babe? And guy killing it right now. He's from South Texas. He's got a beautiful wife, Renee. Garrett, smartest kids you ever seen, and but just killing the circuit right now in comedy. And so it's pretty awesome to see from like where we came from. Originally, we met each other when I was playing ball, and it was pretty cool. But what I wanted to do is I was jumping on. Man, I've had a couple of these already. They've been really cool. I had Willie Powell last week. Guy I played with the Cowboys. My boy Blake Bevan. I told you about when we were at the range. He was a first-round draft pick to the Rangers as a pitcher, and he had a pretty cool story about his call up to the bigs for the first time with the Mariners. But what I love sharing, man, is like, look, I know your story, and your material is the craziest. It's you have your one set relatable, right, and which is the most perfect
Right.
title ever because everybody can relate to the marriage issue or marriage stuff or kid stuff or whatever that goes on. But what I love hearing is like where you're at right now doesn't come from anywhere. It doesn't come from nothing. It doesn't come from luck. It doesn't come from just good end of the gene pool, right? You're natural, but people trying to dial in when I'm talking on this live thing. But it takes a lot of work. So I want to use this. If you're cool with it, I'm like, I want to hear your story coming up, even before maybe you and I met, when Columbo and I came to town and acted a bunch of like idiots. But hear a little bit about your story and growing up maybe in Corpus. You and Renee, how'd you guys meet? And then coming into this comedy world or into this entertainment world in general.
Well, I mean, for me especially, and and I'm sure like yourself, where you don't know what the path is because I grew up in Gregory, Portland, so I didn't even grow up in Corpus Christi. I grew
Oh,
up in a smaller town, and there was no comedy club in Corpus Christi. There was no comedy club for a 2.5 hour drive to Houston was the closest comedy club. I had never seen a comedy club. I had never met a comedian. So for me, it was almost impossible to even, and then being Mexican American, when I was coming up, there was no Mexican American comedians that had TV shows. Paul Rodriguez had an HBO special, and I remember seeing Carlos Mencia on Def Comedy Jam, which is a big deal when we were coming up. But, I always wanted to be a comedian. Didn't know how I would do it. I come from a very blue collar upbringing. My dad is a pipe fitter, welder, maintenance on refineries. So, man, I mean, for me, it was, I know this is what I want to do. I have no idea how to even accomplish that. Not to mention, my parents not knowing what the hell I was doing. I was embarrassed to be a comedian because people would be like, "You want to do what? Where are you going to do that?" So when I moved to Dallas, Texas to work at the Addison Improv Comedy Club, man, my goal was to take what my dad taught me, which was, one thing that my dad told me that has always stuck with me is if you want to make it in life, it's very simple. If you're going to be the dishwasher, be the best damn dishwasher that anybody has ever seen. And if you are the best damn dishwasher that anybody's ever seen, you are not going to be the dishwasher for long. And that always kind of stuck with me, and I always took that mentality to stand up. And when these headliners would come in through the club when I was working the door, my mentality was I'm gonna work my butt off to be around these guys. If it means that I'm gonna sell their merchandise. I mean, John Panette, God rest his soul. John Panette, I'd pick him up at the airport. And by the way, I wanted to be involved so much that I would tell the manager, I'll pick him up at the airport. I'll pick him up in the morning to take him to radio. I'll answer phones. I mean, so I was at the comedy club from 6 a.m. when I would pick him up at the airport sometimes or to take him to radio all the way through the night because I was working the phones. Then I would work the door. Then I would, so my goal was I want to be around it and I'm going to work my butt off and then it was funny because I remember selling merchandise for the headliners, people like John Panette, people like Dave Chappelle, people like Jeff Dunham, Larry the Cable Guy. And I remember the other comedians would be like, dude, like, why do you do that? Like, bro, you're their bitch. And, and I go, because I want to be around. And I would make extra money because they would break me off, $100, $200. I'd make an extra $200 selling John Panette's t-shirts. And then now those same comedians, either they're no longer doing comedy or they're asking to work for me.
Mm.
And I have always taken that mentality of I'm just going to work my ass off, right? I didn't know where that would lead or how it would end up somewhere, but I'm waiting tables. The opening act misses his flight, and the manager comes up to me and goes, Trevino, there's no opening act. You got to go on stage. So I tables because I was waiting approximately 15 minutes. I will be back. And I walked on stage with my apron on, with my staff shirt on, and that was my kind of audition. And then from there, the manager goes, oh, wow, man, like you're really doing this. And I'm like, yeah, this is what I want to do. So I took that opportunity, and then I started asking questions. I started asking the manager, I said, how much do you pay the opening act? And at that time, which was 20 years ago, and it's still the same today, $50 a show, right? So $400 a week to host. So at that point, I told the manager, I said, listen, man, everything that I'm doing for you right now, which is answering phones, taking comics to the radio, working the door, bartending, waiting tables. I said, everything that I'm doing now, I will do that if you pay me $400 a week and I get to host every single week. So the manager was like, you're going to put in all those hours for $400 a week if I let you host? I said, yeah. So he did. And I've just always taken that mentality to stand up. And for me, it has paid off in a way that I feel like I've earned it. Everything that that I have and everything on my 20 years of stand up, I think I've earned it and I've worked hard to do so, you know.
Dude, that's awesome. And by the way, if any of you guys watching right now have questions, put them in the comments, ask them, and we'll try to bring them up. But it's like the stuff that I hear when you're sharing that, and the stuff that I hear is like, okay, if I'm talking to a young gun or somebody who's struggling or whatever, is I hear one, a ton of activity. You're just tearing through a ton of different things trying to find gold. Essentially, you're digging a ton of wells or ton of holes trying to find gold, and you find the ones that have them, and you just kind of go after those specific ones. So you find a piece of gold or a piece of bread in the, in that hosting, and what was cool is number two, you had the guts to get on stage when the opportunity presented itself. That's a big thing because a lot of us shy away from something that's, maybe we've been even preparing for, but all of a sudden guy kind of gets the gift and we're like shock value and deer in headlights and we stop. But that was two. And then three, you actually harnessed it. Like this is a huge issue, especially in sports, that I see from young players and I think it reigns true in the business world or any other profession, is that it's so easy to sit back. Like you might be into that position and sit back, and you might be happy in that, and at some point you get tired of it, or you want more growth or something, and maybe the boss isn't giving it to you, but you just sit there. And this happens to a lot of people, right? Well, what I like about this is like, okay, proactively, what are we doing in our life to fix that? And so this is what I hear from you is like, all right, you recognize the gold, you seize an opportunity, but you also seize potential growth past that. So you actually go to your boss and say, hey, let's do more.
Well, and my thing was, how do I become irreplaceable? Right? How do I become irreplaceable to that manager at that club where if somebody else hits him to open up and say, hey, I want to open up. Why does Trevino get to open up every week? I'm irreplaceable. The manager goes, well, are you going to answer phones? Are you going to go pick up the guy at the radio? Are you going to take him to radio? Are you going to work the door after your set? Because Trevino's going to work the door after his set. Because Trevino's going to stay here and help clean up and help finish out. So my goal was to become irreplaceable so that I could get the stage time that I needed to become a great comedian. And I truly believe that people are no longer willing, and I take that back. I think that there's certain people who are willing to put in the time, the effort, the work, and those people stand out. I think watching the documentary The Last Dance with Michael Jordan has really proven that Michael Jordan was willing to put in that time, that effort to perform and be at the highest level possible, because there's certain people that if you're willing, and I know in your life, I have ran into mediocrely talented comedians who they work their asses off, and because they work so hard, they have a career. And I think that, for me, I just took a very blue collar approach to stand-up comedy, and it has paid off in the way that, I got more stage time than everybody else because I was willing to wake up at 6 a.m. to go take that comedian to the, and by the way, by the time I moved to Los Angeles, I had a relationship with all of those comedians. Up at the radio, I was selling their merchandise because I was, for John Panette changing his sheets. The guy didn't want to use hotel sheets, so he would send me to Target to buy sheets, and then when I picked them up, dropped them off at the club, I would go back to his hotel room and I would change his sheets for him, and he would pay me to do that. So by the time I moved to Los Angeles, everybody was like, oh, hey, Steve, man, you came out to LA. Good for you. So I had already built these relationships.
That's huge. A lot of the time thing is a big thing I think about too. We've known each other like 12 years now, something like that.
Maybe
And
more. I mean, I've known you quite a
yeah,
long time now, I feel.
and what's funny is is so many people right now, right? This is kind of like the thing. We overestimate what we can do in a year, and when we don't hit those overestimations, we get deflated. But we underestimate what we can do at 5 or 10. And I'm like, this is what I love about that, right? You're like, no, this is what I'm on. This is what I want to do. This is what I'm focused to go after. And you've had that compounding of success in that. And what's cool about it, and this is what I go in is you got an amazing family from it now. And I take like, so how did you meet? Like, you're Renee, your wife. She's in the business. I know she's done some commercial or doing some different things. I don't know the whole of it, but how did that come about? How did you meet her? How did that all come about?
Man, we both grew up in the same little town. She grew up in Gregory, Portland. I grew up in Gregory, Portland, and I I always like to tell the story. My parents know her parents, and her dad is the postmaster or the postman in our little town of Portland, Texas. And I'm cutting the yard at my grandma's house. I'm opening up for a certain comedian. My father-in-law, Renee's dad, comes up to me. He says, "Hey man, my daughter, I know you live in LA. My daughter's pursuing acting. She's at NYU in New York. She's going to be in LA for the summer. Here's her phone number. Take care of her." And I was like, "Oh, okay. So that's how that's going to go down, right?" But I've always known who she was, and I've always thought that she was a class act and beautiful. And I thought to myself, "Oh man, here's my opportunity to date this girl." So we go out in LA and we hit it off and we start. I always tell the story. So the first night that we go out on a date, um, I have to leave the next day to go on the road to Chicago. And I told her, I said, "Listen," I go, "you're sharing a futon with two of your friends in a one bedroom in Santa Monica." I go, "Why don't you stay in my apartment? I have this apartment. I got to go on the road anyway. Have the apartment to yourself." I come back from the road. My apartment is clean. My clothes are washed and put away. My bed is made. And let me tell you, Corey, that is the last time that woman has ever done any of that. So, we start dating, and she has to go back to NYU. And she says, "Listen, don't tell anybody that we're dating because I don't want it to get, back to our little town. I don't, if it doesn't work out, I don't want my dad to know." And I understood that. And me and my dad are best friends. So I told my dad, I said, "Hey, are dating Raymond's day." I go to New York City. I'm hanging out with Renee, and I mail in the mail a baseball hat for my dad from Yankee Stadium. And my dad goes to the post office to pick it up, and Renee's dad is holding the package, and he goes, "Why are you getting mail from my daughter?" And my dad goes, "Oh yeah, that's because Steve's having sex with her," and he grabs it and leaves, right? And that is how my father-in-law found out that we were dating. But we've hit it off. It was one of those when you know.
Yeah.
And I think we both knew that we were meant to be together. However, we're very different. Even though we grew up in the same town, we're two very different people, which I think that we've been able through life to teach each other lessons and learn from each other. One of my big lessons that she taught me, I've always had a chip on my shoulder for the, I've always been, and not anymore because of her. I remember, because she's a rich kid, and I remember her telling me, "Hey, like, don't be mad at that guy because his parents did well.
Right.
Don't be mad at that person because his parents are ever able to give him or her things. Why are you mad at them?" So she's been able to teach me those lessons, and it made me realize, like, yeah, why am I mad at them? Why am I wasting energy mad at some kid because mommy and daddy were able to help him or her? At the end of the day, my parents gave me tools that they could be jealous of, right? My
Right.
father and my mother gave me, faith. They gave me work ethic. They gave me drive. My experiences gave me a lot of attributes that they may not have. And I'm not saying that rich kids don't have drive or these attributes. I'm just saying that the biggest thing for me was her teaching me to don't worry about that guy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, don't worry about that comedian. You know, I used to come home and go, oh, so and so's dad is a TV producer. Of course he's gonna make it. You know, oh, so and so's parents pay his rent in LA. Of course he's gonna make that. When I should be spending energy on how do I get her? How do I make it? And one of the big lessons that she taught me, you know. So I think our relationship, even though we grew up in the same little town, which helped, so we truly understand each other and where we come from, but us being completely different, it has helped both of our relationship, you know, both of our in our relationship.
That's good, man. I had you talk about that. One of my most favorite verses. You talk about your family gave you faith, parents gave you faith, and work ethic, and all these good attributes. One of my favorite verses is a man finds a wife, finds a good thing, or finds favor. And so what's cool about that, a lot of guys kind of get sideways is, or another proverb is, a good wife is a crown to her husband's head. And so what's neat about that stuff is a lot of guys get sideways and you know, people come into a relationship and like, I married this person, I don't want them to change, or I married this person, but I can change them. And what's neat about that is they're supposed to be different, right? Like we're better because our wives are not us.
Right. Absolutely.
And I'm probably less of a meathead because of my wife.
No,
But
me, dude, me too. Believe me, you're lucky I'm wearing a shirt today, and it's not much of a shirt. So, no, absolutely. I mean, I think that, you know, having the wife that I have changed my life, and I talk about it all the time. Where when I first met her, my stand up was angry because I really I hated her for making me fall in love with her. And I know that's a kind of a weird thing to say, but I did. I fell in love with this girl, and I was traveling, I was single, I was doing whatever I wanted to do, and then this woman comes into my life that I fall in love with, lose. So now I have to change my behaviors. So my stand up at that time was very angry and very upset and very you know, women aren't fair and, you know, blah, blah, blah. And, but once I realized that I was okay being that guy, once I realized that I'm not leaving, she's not leaving, I'm madly in love with her. And once that came out in my stand up, that's when people really started to gravitate towards it because they go, oh, I see this guy's frustration and his want to make his wife happy, but he's so frustrated, but he loves her. And once that happened, you know, people really started to enjoy my show because I think a lot of men, you know, go through that cycle of like, hey man, I like being single and I like to party and I like to do what I want to do and then when you get to the point where you go, hey man, I like being a family man. That piss me off and frustrate me about all of it, and then I bring that on stage and people go, oh my God, I'm living the same life you are. I'm on board, Steve. I'm frustrated with my wife too. However, she's going to get what she wants. You know what I mean?
we were talking about that last week, and it was funny. We were doing some hog hunting at Steve's place last week during this thing, and we were talking about it because I was late getting back home, but like the guy comes back late, right? It's the end of the world. But if the wife comes back late, hey, it's just you got to deal with it. That's just what happens. I couldn't make it back.
Get over it, buddy. Yeah, get over it. Well, and then we were also laughing, and I think I might turn it into a bit where, you know, I love to fish, I love to hunt, and if I get invited to go fishing, I am not on my schedule. I have been invited on somebody's boat to fish, and now my wife's going, "Hey, can you be home by 2?" I don't know. I can't tell these guys who invited me. Right, I'm on their boat. I'm fishing with them. Hey guys, I know that you're out having fun and fishing, but my wife would like me to be home by 2 o'clock. Like you can't do it, except my wife thinks that you can. I'm like, honey, I can't tell these guys to stop fishing right now. Like, I'm on their time.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think like stuff like that happens where I'm like, man, I could write a joke about that because I think we all live that struggle of the wife expecting you. Well, what time are you going to be home? I don't know. They invited me.
Oh yeah, this is crazy. Oh, I got you know it. When I got home, I was getting beat up a little bit, so it was
Oh,
fine though. She
and
went out.
me and we didn't stop for. I just want your wife to know we didn't stop for food. We did like we we didn't stop for gas. We didn't clean up right. We were like, we got to get Corey home. It was like a scene from The Hangover when we're like, we got to make the wedding. That's
Seriously.
that's that's how it was. Like Corey was, we had a van pull up and we had to change Corey while we were driving. Like we really did our best to get you home because we all have wives and we're all scared to death of our wives because they're horrible people.
I love it. It's
But
awesome.
one of the questions you asked me when we were talking at the ranch, you said, I want to talk about obstacles that you've overcome. And for the past week, since you brought that up with me, I really had to think about, okay, what are the obstacles that I have to overcome? And I started coming up with all of these, like, well, I had to live in LA with no help. I had to figure it out. And then I realized that at the end of the day, the biggest obstacle that I had to overcome was myself. And I had to overcome my insecurities, my weaknesses, my anger issues. So at the end of the day, when it comes to obstacles that I had to overcome, it was me. I had to overcome me. I had to overcome my jealousy for other people, like we talked about earlier. I had to overcome my anger issues. I had to overcome everything that I personally inside myself have to deal with. And once I got over that, I started to become more successful. And one thing that I do every day, and I encourage other people to do, is every day when I wake up, I ask myself, what did I do today to make my life better? What did I do today that improves my life?
Mm.
Did I cut the yard today? Did I work on the house today? Did I spend that extra time with my son that I should have spent? Did I treat my wife better to make? What did I do today to make my life better? And if I look at my day and I go, well, you sat on the couch, you watched TV, you didn't do anything for your home, for your family, for your kid, for yourself, you've just wasted a day.
Mm.
And it's funny because when I hang around people, they go, where do you get all this energy, Steve? You're nonstop, man. You wake up and you don't stop moving. You're on the phone, you're doing business, you're doing social media, you're working in the yard, you're working in your home, and you don't stop. And it's because I have the motivation inside me to go, every day goes by, what did I do today?
Mm.
And I think that if we approach life like, hey man, these days are going to run out. We're running out of every day we're running out of days.
Mm.
So I have to do what I can do now to make my life better for tomorrow, you know?
I love that because that's almost like it's like the athlete or military mindset where it's just this extreme kind of ownership. And it's like, listen, there's a lot of contributing factors that I can't control, but what can I control? And that's
Me.
just, yeah, exactly. And that's what I love, and that's what I think you get see a lot of people get stuck down. And it's an easy place to go down, right? Because there's a lot of factors that are influencing our lives. But if what is so good about that, and it's interesting that you're just talking about the perspective of overcoming that obstacle, is that, man, so many our own mindset and our own downtrodden behavior is really what is contributing to any sort of depth of hell that we might be falling into. And directly on the opposite, as this is what I love, it's like, what kind of, all right, one, what are we consuming? What kind of questions are you asking yourself? And you're like, all right, that's a perfect one, because what have I done today to make my life any sort of better? Well, shoot, now I got to evaluate myself. And
Sure.
if I haven't done anything, well, that's my own fault. And when it's, especially when I'm the one getting asked the question, right?
Right.
Crap, now I got to
Well,
think.
and I've never talked about this publicly. I'm going to do it now, but uh, in my times at the Addison Improv, when I was working the door, I met a hypnotist comedian named Flip Orley, who is extremely talented, and he does those hypnotize shows, right? Like, he
Mm,
gets volunteers on stage, he hypnotizes them, and he makes them do some really funny things, And when I played ball in high school, I ended up with 4 back surgeries. I broke my lumbar 5, and because of that, I was in a lot of pain. And back then, when I met Flip Orley in my early 20s, I was dealing with that pain with alcohol, with opiates. I would get prescribed hydrocodone, and those things I was on them all the time because of the back pain. And Flip Orley goes, "Hey man, have you ever tried self hypnosis for your pain?" And I said, "No." And he goes, "Well, I'm going to teach you how to self hypnotize yourself and do self hypnosis. And through that, you can ask yourself in your hypnotic state that you're going to be more productive, that you're going to have a better attitude, that your back is not going to hurt, that you're going to be, that 2 hours of sleep is going to feel like 10." And
mm,
I have exercised self hypnosis in my life for the past 20 years,
mm.
and I have become very good at it. And it's hard to talk about because people look at me and go, "You're crazy. What are you talking about? You self hypnotize yourself?" I do, and I've shared this with other people, and I've had a couple people that are like, "Man, I'm able to do it." And I've been doing my research online, and I figured out how to do it. And you're right, it works. And it's much like faith, right? It's much like when you go to bed at night and you go, "Hey, God, give me the strength tomorrow to be more patient with my wife and more patient with my kids and more productive." It's very similar. You're convincing
Mm-hmm.
your brain to be more productive, to have a better attitude, to be positive instead of negative. And I mean, it's worked wonders for me with my back pain. I'm no longer on hydrocodone. I no longer drink daily. So it's been a huge help for me. And I've never, and as a matter of fact, I have not been able to catch up with Flip Orley since then. So I would love to see Flip and say, "Hey man, what you did for me changed my life."
Man, it's life and death is in the power of the tongue. I mean, you can lift somebody up or you can kill them with your words. and
Right.
that's and that's bringing yourself up, and that's, man, that's awesome. Well, shoot, let's do this. We're a little over 30 minutes right now. I want to let you get on. I know you got your family and everybody is doing their thing, but you've had there's some good nuggets already. If there was anything else, I'll encourage you guys right now, go see a step. But if there was anything else, like you had a message or something kind of burning on you, or a thought for young people or anybody who's going through this or coming out, especially as a gig worker, right? Your whole industry was shut down during this thing. What's a word of encouragement? What's a piece of encouragement or something that was big in your life that you're like, hey, that you'd like to share with somebody?
Well, I mean, all the things that I've talked about, and I remember when me and you were driving out to the ranch and we were having the discussion about what you were trying to accomplish with this FaceTime that we're doing. And for me, I think it's the main thing, especially for young people. And it's funny because, like you, they'll ask me, "Hey, can you go speak at my high school?" And I'm like, "Oh man, it's tough because I didn't go to college, right? I didn't go to the military. I knew exactly what I wanted to do since I was a child, and I have been successful without going to college. So I've really had to think about, okay, what message do I want to give these kids other than go to college, and I don't, and so for me, to me, it's, wake up every day and choose to control yourself. You choose who you want to be. You choose the kind of person that you want to be, how hard you want to work, and the things that you want to accomplish. That we are in control of our body and our mind. And it doesn't matter where you come from. It doesn't matter if whatever's happening at home, that's their problem. That I always tell that because I grew up in a divorced family, and to realize that, hey, that's my mom and dad's issue. That's not my issue.
Right.
That's their problems,
Mm-hmm.
right? I'm not going to let their problems affect my success. And I think at the end of the day, it's my message is wake up every day and ask yourself, how can I be a better me, and how can I make my life better today? And that's the big message that I always try to get out there.
That's good, man. Dude, thank you so much. Guys, check this out. I'm gonna rip this off of Facebook. I'm gonna put it on YouTube for everybody. They can go back and look at it and watch. Guys, go follow Steve. Freaking hilarious. My favorite bit is the McDonald's fries one. I think this like because that's my life.
Dude, I live it every day, and I can imagine how many French fries you eat, big guy.
Choked a lot down in my day.
Yeah, like I'm real skinny.
Well, go check him out. Go follow him. Social media. Man, you see him here. It is awesome. It is a show you don't want to miss because the guy's hilarious, and then he's just got an amazing family. But man, I love you. I love your family.
You, buddy.
Thanks so much, brother, for coming on, and we'll talk to you later.
Awesome, man. Thanks, dude. Later.
All right, brother. Bye.